theory about this whole COVID thing is like the top leadership of the Communist Party wants to implement zero COVID, not because they think it's the best overall policy, but because I actually think that the leadership is scared of getting COVID themselves. Like, a lot of disasters, they really don't affect the elite, but a disease that can spread presumably through the air is the scariest thing because it kind of affects everyone equally, no matter what your status or wealth is. And so because of that terror that, we who are supposed to be insulated from all the things that the poor people go through, like we could get this too. And so they're just so terrified of it that they're implementing these insane policies. And I think for that almost like weirdly selfish reason is why we're seeing China's whole zero COVID thing.
I mean, I believe that Xi Jinping is afraid of getting COVID. He's not left the country in 2 years. But I think also
now's the time.
Well, I think
go to a country that's been past COVID, Xi Jinping. Come to America.
Maybe, Chris, you can finally get your interview with
Oh,
you.
yeah.
But no, what I was going to say is I think another reason, though, is because the system is set up for something like zero COVID.
Right.
Right? The system is set up for a top-down, like, control of people, of movement, of, like, that's, you have the neighborhood committees who are already there. They weren't set up for COVID control, right? You've had neighborhood committees since the time of Mao. They were just there to
be the eyes and ears of the party.
Yeah, to report on people and make sure that everybody's studying the Little Red Book and nobody's having counter-revolutionary thoughts. About a dozen years ago, they started this grid management system of the city. So it's like this, the bureaucracy is set up for this. It is set up to be able to control people's movement. They had the QR codes, the health codes, which is not like a vaccine passport. It doesn't show you whether it shows you a red, yellow, or green. And if you're red, you can't leave.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you're yellow, your movement is restricted to certain places. You can't go inside certain stores or whatever. If you're green, you can go places. So it is movement restriction. It is not, passport.
Since they have the tool to control everything, they might as well use that tool. Like they just see that. Whereas another country, like, a lot of African countries are like, yeah, we don't have the resources to do any of this, so we're just going to kind of let it run its course. And that comes with its own problems too. But I'm just talking about the difference in mentality. Like when you don't have the tools to try to control everything, you just don't try to control everything. And then at least you don't get the problems that come with excessive amounts of control.
When you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail.
I could have just said that.
I do also think that there's an interesting part of this which is the economic part of the COVID control.
Oh,
Because, think about all that. You've seen all the pandemic workers wearing like the full body PPE suits, right?
Yeah.
In China, they call those people dabai, like the big whites.
Mm-hmm.
Because everybody's just like wearing those white suits. Like they manufactured those suits. That adds to the GDP. They're testing, tens of millions of people, like all of that, making swabs, making tests, running tests, that all adds to the GDP. Like they've built this little COVID economy almost out of everything that goes into like maintaining this type of zero COVID system. And an interesting thing is, who the people are inside those white suits?
I do, because you told me.
Oh, yeah. Well,
I don't know, Shelley. Who are they?
They're migrant workers. They're not nurses and doctors. They're not police. Like at first I thought that a lot of the people doing the kind of some of the security work were police officers or something like that. The people who are testing people had some kind of like health qualifications. But no, the majority of the people in these, if you do have some doctors and nurses and things like that, but the majority of people testing people, enforcing all these COVID policies, disinfecting, etc., they're all working at the quarantine camps. They're all migrant workers.
Yeah, well, because they're poor and they have no power. So if they get sick, like no big deal, right?
There's no, say like the factories are shut, right? There's no, they maybe used to do sales, like door-to-door sales, or you used to do construction, or all of that's shut down. You don't have any choice. You'd be like a delivery driver, a pandemic worker, or something like that.
It's the new COVID economy, like you're saying.
Yeah, so you have all of these migrant workers going around. Essentially, they're the ones that have to enforce the policies. And if they get sick, they get quarantined in their own migrant worker camps. People were posting some of the videos of the camps, like literally people in tents out on the street because the dorm was supposed to be disinfected or something like that. People in container, like it just.
It's like China's one big, like, what was that? The prison experiment?
Mm-hmm. Oh,
the Stanford prison experiment.
Yeah, that's the one. It's like that. That's what China is.
Yeah, the whole thing is just mind-blowing.
Yeah. But yeah, the economics of this lockdown has been insane. Besides like the global effect this is going to have with, the world's largest shipping container port being in Shanghai. And that's, even though they're keeping that operating, like the fact that the transportation to the port has been basically cut off. This is going to have a huge global repercussion, but also like, China Central Bank is, back at manipulating its currency again to deal with the economic slowdown of this. They need, because industry has been so affected, they need cheap energy. So they've announced they're going to be, pushing coal more. So, going back to that green energy thing, like the ripple effect of this is going to be tremendous.
Oh yeah, I mean, I don't think we're going to see the shipping effects here for a couple of months, but then we're going to start seeing what happened last summer, right?
If only Americans had used the first 2 years of COVID to pull out of China and disconnect from that segment of the economy.
Well, it's not that easy. But
I know, but 2 years is enough time to make substantial progress. And we didn't do it. We didn't even try.
Think about how much the U.S. economy changed almost overnight for World War II, the wartime economy. So it is possible to make vast economic change quickly. There just needs to be the will to do it.
I mean, we did make some changes, like look at all these companies that can now make masks in China, in the U.S., right?
But aren't those all going out of business because of cheap Chinese masks?
Well,
all over
that's
again?
the thing. Like, did we learn our lesson about that part of it? Yeah.
We did not learn. And then you have, a small number of gatekeepers. Like, for example, if Amazon had decided, you know what, we're going to stop offering Chinese products for sale on our platform, right? That would fundamentally change the game for everything. And if you could have a few big retailers like Amazon and I don't know, whatever the next, 3 or 4 big competitors are, Walmart is probably up there. And just like you could change things fundamentally and you'd give a huge boost to American manufacturing as well. But like there's no political pressure for them to do that. The media is not pressuring. Certainly the Washington Post is not going to encourage big companies to stop.
I mean, I don't know if that's the first step.
But it's a step, and you have to. It's a critical step because if during World War II, American companies continued to support the Nazis. I mean, there were a lot of them that had IBM and whatnot, but like there was a certain point at which there was enough pressure that companies were like, okay, we're not going to be involved in this anymore. Then like it does make change, and we should have been there. It should have happened, and not because the Communist Party is terrible, but just because it should be clear that economically it's a bad idea to be connected.
I don't think that's clear to people at all.
Well, so this ties into a topic I wanted to bring up today, that everything does kind of depend on the messaging to Americans about China. And, this week, the director of the FBI, Christopher Wray, was on 60 Minutes. And, I think he has done a very good job over the years of like specifically trying to tell the American people that, the Chinese Communist Party, and he specifically singles out the Chinese Communist Party, not just China, is, a huge threat to the U.S. We can play a little segment of that clip.
The biggest threat we face as a country from a counterintelligence perspective is from the People's Republic of China, and especially the Chinese Communist Party. No country presents a broader, more severe threat to our ideas, our innovation, our economic security than China. And they are targeting our innovation, our trade secrets, our intellectual property on a scale that's unprecedented in history. They have a bigger hacking program than that of every other major nation combined. They have stolen more of Americans' personal and corporate data than every nation combined.
And so, yeah, I think this kind of goes back to what we were just talking about there needs to be, the U.S. government and all of its various branches needs to be messaging to the American people to let them know that this is a problem. Because otherwise, people might not know, especially with Elon Musk strangling the life out of Twitter now.
Well, I think it can't just be the U.S. government, right?
No, it needs to be brave YouTubers.
Yes, we're going to turn the tide.
It should be the media in general that kind of understand it, because it really shouldn't matter what your view on U.S. political issues is. Like there's lots of reasons to not to pull manufacturing and that economic relationship out of China. The least of which is what we talked about, which is China's massive pollution and being powered by a coal grid, which is putting so much carbon into the atmosphere that if you're concerned about man-made climate change, like why on earth are you buying stuff that's manufactured in China?
I'd prefer if you use the term woman-made climate change. Be a little more person include.
Unbelievable, Chris.
I'm trying to make my conversations more like Twitter.
I hate you.
There we go. It's just like Twitter. But I do think that the media is a big problem in terms of they don't really want to talk about this. Wall Street's another big problem. There was an interesting article in the Wall Street Journal recently about Wall Street's Shanghai problem, because Shanghai is a huge business sector in China, right? So suddenly you have people who work in finance, like Americans who work in finance in Shanghai, being like, oh, I have to be locked in my apartment for 6 weeks. Like, what's happening?
Well, that goes back to the people who don't really feel the Communist Party's persecution are feeling it.
Yeah. So there's been some talk about expats leaving China. Actually, that might be backed up because people are talking about, like international schools, all the teachers are going, like you could see like a big move out of China. There's also talk of Chinese people leaving, but it's kind of like the going to Canada thing.
Yeah.
Some people are going to say it and not just go.
Well, I think there is reason to be hopeful. Like recently there was a new poll by, I believe, Morning Consult that showed that the majority of Americans across party lines are supportive of like trade tariffs on China, and that the majority of Americans would vote for a politician who would continue these kind of tough on China policies.
It was like 70% plus.
Yeah, it was a big majority, and like roughly those numbers for Republican, Democrat, Independent. And so this really is the result of, I think, successful messaging to the American people. Let them know, like, oh, this is a problem. Because the problem had been going on for decades, but now people finally are catching on.
Yeah, I mean, I also think that, the Chinese Communist Party's actions have helped in the last 2 years.
And I think that China Uncensored and China Unscripted have really led the way.
I think so, too.